Welcome back to another episode of the Scran Line. I'm Nick. We are going to be making a banana sheet cake today. I've never made a sheet cake on this channel and I really enjoyed making this. Now, this cake is really easy to make, but it is time consuming, and there's a difference between those things. It doesn't necessarily make it hard to make, but you're going to need a little bit of time to actually do the decorating. Now, if you've never done fine detailed decorating like this, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but it's not impossible. At the end of the day, cake is cake and it's going to taste delicious. Now, if you're following me on Instagram, you'll know that I asked you guys to actually name this cake. And if you're not following me there already, make sure you are. It's at the Scran Line, because sometimes I ask you guys to actually name the desserts that I make, and it's a lot of fun when you guys come up with really creative names like this one. So you guys very cleverly decided to name this cake This Sheet is Bananas, and that's a play on words from a Gwen Stefani song, which I absolutely love. So I chose that name for this cake. Before we get stuck into today's recipe, I want to quickly remind you guys to hit the subscribe button, because I love seeing this community grow. And there's a little bell icon next to that subscribe button. Hit that so that YouTube notifies you via email or sends a notification to your device as soon as there's a new video up, so you guys don't miss out. The first thing we're going to do for this cake is actually make the cake, go figure. So you want to do that by adding your flour, sugar, baking powder and salt into a large mixing bowl. We're going to mix that until it's well combined. Next, we're going to add our softened butter and we're going to mix that until we reach a crumbly sand-like texture. Next, you want to add your eggs, milk, oil, vanilla extract. Now, normally I add yogurt into my vanilla cakes to help them make them moist, but we're going to be adding banana instead today because it basically does the same thing. We're also going to be adding some cinnamon in there, and we are going to mix this until it all comes together and it's really well combined. The final thing you're going to do for your batter is add some mini choc chips in there and fold it using a spatula. If you don't have mini choc chips, or you don't want to use those, you want to use regular size, that's completely fine. Now, I've got a baking sheet here which I've lined with some baking paper and sprayed with some oil. The measurements and the full list of ingredients and instructions for this recipe are on my website. That's where all of my recipes live. We're going to pour the batter into our baking pan and we're going to bake this for about 60 minutes. This cake bakes on a low temperature. Once it's baked, you want to let it cool down completely. Once it's cooled, you're going to trim the top off. Now, you can do this using a serrated knife or a cake leveler like I am. I find cake levelers a little bit easier. Once you've trimmed the top off, get rid of the excess, and we are going to make some simple syrup because this cake is already moist, but we're going to make it even more delicious. You're going to add equal parts sugar and water into a large microwave safe bowl, whisk it all together, and then you're going to microwave it for 5 minutes and then continue whisking until the sugar is completely dissolved. We're going to use a pastry brush to brush that simple syrup on top of our cake, and then we are going to add the first layer of frosting, which is the crumb coat. So the crumb coat is all about trapping the crumbs in the first layer of frosting so they don't show on the final layer. So we're going to be using some yellow food gel to color our frosting. So my Swiss meringue buttercream frosting, which is absolutely to die for. And we're going to mix that until it's really well combined. That's the frosting we're going to be using for the crumb coat. You want to pipe that on the cake and then use a small offset spatula to spread it out as evenly as you can before you chill it in the fridge. Now, if you want to learn how to make my Swiss meringue buttercream frosting, I've actually got a video tutorial and you can watch that up there. The final layer of frosting is going to be kind of like a red-pink frosting. So you want to add food gel to your frosting and mix that until it's really well combined. And we're going to pipe that on top of our chilled cake. And we're going to be using a small offset spatula to smoothen that out as well. So get it as smooth as you can, and then you're going to use a cake scraper or bench scraper to smoothen it out even more. Now guys, I watched a couple tutorials online on how to actually smoothen out rectangle or square cakes because I've never actually done it before. And this was the way that I found was like within my reach of doing. But if you guys have suggestions on easier ways to actually frost a square or rectangle cake, I'm all about hearing those suggestions because this was a little bit time consuming. And if there's an easier way, leave it in the comments down below and let me and everyone else that's watching know how to do it. Once you've got it looking as smooth as you can, and it doesn't need to look absolutely spotless and perfect, it's just as smooth as you can get it, pop it in the fridge and let it chill for about an hour or an hour and a half. You want to make sure it's really chilled before we do the next bit. Now I've colored some more frosting, a bunch of different colors. I'll leave the full list of instructions and the color combinations in the ingredients list of the recipe on my website. We're going to be popping all of those into a piping bag or separate piping bags fitted with a Wilton No. 3 tip. Now, the first thing I'm going to do when I decorate this cake is actually use a toothpick to kind of draw out the outlines of the bananas so that I have a guide of where each banana is and which parts I need to color what. We're going to begin by frosting the lightest yellow on top of our cake. That's going to be the exposed banana bit. And then we're going to be using a small pointed offset spatula just to smoothen it out. It doesn't need to be perfect again, just get it as neat as you can. Then you want to start coloring the rest of the bananas. So like the darker side of the bananas, the lighter side of the bananas, the peels of the bananas, and as you're piping, smooth it out with that special little pointed offset spatula. Now, when I posted this on Instagram, some people preferred the cake without the outline, and I put the outline on there anyway. But if you want to save yourself the trouble and the time, just leave the outline off, that's completely fine. But I decided to outline each banana with some black frosting, and that is pretty much it, guys. I had so much fun making this. It is a little bit time consuming. You can pop on your favorite podcast or album. You can even listen to some of my videos in the background if you like, while you decorate the cake. I actually got inspired to make the pattern for this cake from an image that I saw on Pinterest. So if you find like a different pattern that you like, you can pretty much use any decorations you like. That's the beauty of this cake. Now, not only does this cake taste delicious, but it actually is really easy to serve for your guests. That's my favorite thing about sheet cake. So if you guys enjoyed watching this video and you give it a go, make sure you tag me in your photos on Instagram. But let me know what other sheet cakes you'd like to see me make on the Scran Line if you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all on the next episode of the Scran Line.